Good morning. Good morning. We have approached the witching hour. This is Everyday Shenanigans. This content is pertaining to Ronnie Lawson's son, Brandon Lawson. He's been convicted of sex crimes against children. He has been given a cake walk, free pass, 1 year in jail, 19 years probation. I'll read you the said information after I play this audio. Thank you all so much for joining me.
Brandon Lawson, fighting demons for the majority of his life.
Hello, darling.
Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson's son pleaded guilty on October 13th to 4 counts of attempted aggravated sexual battery. The allegations against Brandon Lewis Lawson, 43, of Rogersville, were made by 2 underage female victims dating back to 2018 and 2020 regarding unlawful attempted sexual contact that Lawson made toward them. The 4 alleged crimes all happened in Hawkins County. He was sentenced to 5 years on each count to run consecutively for a total of 20 years, with 1 year in jail and the rest on supervised probation. He will also be required to register as a convicted sex offender for life. The plea agreement was approved by the victims and their parents. Both girls entered victim impact statements into the court record. One victim stated that Lawson made sexual advances toward her, touched her body, showed her a lewd photo of himself, and threatened to tell people she'd had sex with him if she told anyone. It made me feel disgusting and guilty that it happened. I feel like people would feel different, in a bad way, if they knew. It made me feel insecure about my body. I felt guilty that I didn't tell anyone, but I was scared. It made me very sad and disgusted with myself. I don't like being around older men, the first victim said in her victim impact statement. The second victim simply described Lawson's crimes against her as sexual abuse. She stated she has been in counseling, was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and that she feels like her world has been flipped upside down. I would like to say that I did not choose for all of this to take place, the second victim stated. I just chose to tell the truth. By telling the truth, I have lost many people that I was close with.
Wow.
She added, I feel like I have lost relationships by telling the truth. So I believe he should go through the same pain because it is his fault. His defense attorney said that Brandon Lawson has been fighting demons for the majority of his life. He turned to the Lord many years ago for Christian guidance, but he lost his footing for a few years, and it's been hard on him, Brandon's lawyer said. He's had a challenging time trying to overcome the burdens of his past. Everyone deserves some peace when this is over, and I hope from this point forward everyone in this case, including Brandon, the victims, and everyone else involved can move forward and put this all behind them. It's been a challenging time and it's time to look forward instead of back, and I hope everyone can do that. Following 1 year of incarceration, Brandon Lawson will serve the remaining time on probation.
Is this a fair sentence considering these are crimes against children? Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. I will read you the following information with a source. My. No rest for the weary, indeed. 19 years probation. How is that fair for enticement of children? Sending inappropriate content. How is that? Sorry about that. How is that fair to the children? A child now has come out. Obviously, some people know, and I guess they're not her friends. I'm looking at this as, why would children care to stop being friends with a child because you heard that she was touched inappropriately by a man? What type of friend is that? Is this an issue of she and her family are close to Brandon and his family, and people were stunned when they got the information? That is why she lost friends. Is it possible that she lost close friends that are related to the Lawson family? Because that's what this sounds like, because we know that underage children names aren't supposed to be mentioned in court proceedings or put on the affidavit. So therefore, somebody up there's been talking, perhaps. You had to have talked. Somebody had to have told it. Was it you, Brandon? Did you tell the children's names? You would be a fool to have done that. But as I've told you all, when you live in a small town, things get out because people talk. Very, very interesting information. This is why I asked, is there corruption pertaining to Mr. Lawson, Ronnie Lawson, the sheriff? Because I'm wondering if you are in cahoots with the judge who was over the case. Was somebody paid money to give him a lighter sentence? Yes, I'm going to go ahead and go there. There is also a change.org petition to have this man, Mr. Lawson, removed from his position because perhaps there's corruption up there in that sheriff's department. Something's off here. How do you recommend 20 years to only give a person 1 year in jail? If you felt that way about the children, you should have just found him not guilty. Let him walk, because he's going to be walking. Someone in the chat earlier said he's free. I don't know. But 1 year to me is freedom. 1 year of lying down, eating for free, sleeping for free, doing absolutely nothing. And when I looked at this video, there's 2 mug shots of you, Mr. Brandon. One is where you're a little scruffy and your face is fuller. That leads the queen to believe that were you arrested another time, sir? Since you've had all these demons in your life? And then the one where you're looking smaller is the picture that's been going around, I think, of their recent booking. What all have you done, Brandon? We're curious. And what all has been swept under the rug because of your affiliation with your father? This content was uploaded October 20th. Connected Hawkins County man gets 1 year in jail, 19 years probation. Brandon Lawson, the son of Hawkins County, Tennessee Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, pled guilty on October 13th to 4 counts of attempted aggravated sexual battery and was sentenced to 1 year in a local jail, 19 years on probation, and remain on the sex offender registry for the remainder of his life, according to reports. According to court documents, the 4 alleged, oh, Lordy, my screen jumped off. Okay, the first, I can't even get this together. The 4 alleged incidents occurred in 2018 and 2020. The first offense allegedly occurred in August 2018, and the 4th occurred in March of 2018. And as you see, that's a couple of months gap between the offenses. So 5 months interval, the first 2 occurrences. Why was that? Is it that you only came in contact with the victim 2 times in a 5-month interval, Mr. Brandon? I'm curious. Once again, first offense allegedly occurred August 2018, and the 4th occurred in March 2018, according to the court documents. The 2nd and 3rd counts reportedly occurred in April 20 and December 20. So that's a long stretch from April 20 to December. It's a very long time. Why was that? Once again, even longer stretch. $8 months. 5 months in one interval, 8 months in the other. Who are these children, Brandon, that you're trying to seduce? Neighborhood children? Friends' children? Do you go to church? Church children? Who are we speaking of? Because I'm curious. Well, we've learned that children grow up sometimes to become offenders. So was he? Yes, molested as a child. We'll chop all that up here in a second. According to the reports, court documents state that Lawson committed the act of attempted aggravated sexual battery by knowingly and unlawfully attempting to have unlawful sexual contact that would have caused bodily injury to the victim. Lawson was sentenced to 5 years for each offense for a total of 20 years, but will serve 1 year with 19 years of probation. No information was available on his victims. That is the ClayburnProgress.net. So the one paperwork I saw that was on YouTube had mentioned something about penetration. So I'm confused. Did you penetrate the children or you didn't? And how long have you been desiring children? How many children have you molested total? Who molested you as a child? Or were you not molested as a child? If you were molested as a child, who did it? Please tell me it wasn't your dirty daddy. How many brothers and sisters do you have? Have you ever attempted to touch any of them? Or any of those children molested as children? When did you decide that you wanted to start touching girls? The girl felt dirty. Traumatic stress disorder. And that can be very trying for a person when they obtain this disorder as a child. And then into adulthood. Be afraid of men. As she said, I'm afraid of older men. 43, you're old enough to be somebody's father or grandfather. Depending on how young you start having children, you know you're too damn old to be messing with kids. What's your problem? Let me guess. You never grew up as a child. You were coddled as a child, immature as a child, had your way as a child, wayward as a child. Is that where we're going with this? And then you grew up to become a wayward adult. So I'm going to ask you, have you ever been married, Brandon? Do you have any children? God forbid you don't. Girlfriends, acquaintances, sex partners? Like the girl to dress up, a woman, look like a child with pigtails? I'm just asking. Because most men who desire children, they like the woman to look young. And that's why they prefer young women. That's why a lot of older men prefer women that are 22, 20 years old. Because they're just a few years shy of being a child. And as not to feel like a dirty old bastard, they seek out young girls. Interesting. Hit the link if you have commentary pertaining to Ronnie Lawson, his son's short term in jail, why the sentence was so short. Is there corruption in the sheriff's department? Is Mr. Ronnie Lawson corrupt? Is he in cahoots with the judges in this jurisdiction? Did he pay for a favor to get a shorter sentence for his son? Where's the son going to live and work once he's out of jail? How are you going to work a job being on the register, sir? Are you going to stay in the area, sir? If you leave the area, sir, you'll have to register at your next location. What kind of life do you think you're going to have? Let me guess, Mr. Lawson and his wife or whomever, if he's married, they're going to help foot the bill and keep you tucked away nice and neat. How convenient. Now, what about our victims? They're the ones left holding the bag. And it's sad to hear a child say they lost friends because of this. Well, sweetheart, they were never your friends. You'll meet new friends. You'll keep it moving. You'll have to pray to God He gives you strength. And remove the stones. This is baffling to me. Ronnie Lawson, you can't seem to give us information about Summer Wells. What the fuck is going on up there? Well, that's okay because I've left a nice message to the news desk last night, for someone to do a news story, an investigation on you. And please sign to change.org if you feel the need that this man needs to be removed from office in case there is corruption in this jurisdiction, this police department, sheriff's department, and any other improprieties of anyone involved with the sheriff's office, Ronnie Lawson, any judicial aids, entities, police departments, whomever. State's attorney, it's all the damn same. And the state's attorney, you also need to be brought up on investigations as well because you're the ones that signed off. Ting! Somebody. You all were in collusion. Because it starts with an investigation. Detectives. Number 2. An indictment. Number 3. State's attorney. Boom. Judge. Where are we going with this? How many hands are in the pot up there? But we also know even the state's attorney, they recommend a sentence. In the end, it is the judge to make a decision. If he went before the bench. Obviously, he didn't take a trial, so he went before the bench. Still jacked up. Please go to change.org and sign the petition to have Ronnie Lawson removed if you feel he needs to go. Due to the fact that he is the one officiating a missing child out of Rogersville, Tennessee, I do not trust his judgment. He may say, well, I don't have anything to do with the judicial process of my son, but some of us will differ because we'll say, well, you know people up there. It's a small place. There's no way you don't know the judge. There's no way you didn't know the judge that was going to be on the case. Who's to say the judge didn't call you and have a chit chat with you? And then you had a chit chat with your son and his attorney. Fuck out of here. It's ridiculous. Hit the link if you have an opinion pertaining to this sentencing. We need to talk about all of it. Why in the world would someone let a person who's made 4 attempts to mess with a child get 1 year in jail? 19 years probation. Let me make sure I said that correctly. 19 years probation. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm going to ask this. I'm going to ask this question. Judge, let's say Brandon gets out of jail if he isn't already free, and he decides to find himself sending somebody else some lewd pictures and soliciting some other child on the internet or wherever. They get wind of it, the system. The child goes forward. The state comes back again with an indictment, a charge. How much time are you going to give him now? Because you're only giving him the year. So let's say this happens again. What you going to do the next time? Or let me guess, you all find another judge. Oh, my goodness gracious. Better hope that he doesn't have a nasty accident next time he decides he wants to play footsies with underage children. May not make it to court. Might meet Big Bubba. Mess with the wrong man's children. Won't have to worry about the judicial system. Somebody will just give him some good old back road country justice. My. And now, Ronnie, you know about that type of justice. You know all about them back roads. Bunch of hillbillies piled up in a truck with Confederate flags. Everybody's standing around. One might have a hood on, one might not. Couple of flannel shirts open with hairy chests and big pot bellies. I think you know where I'm going, sir. They might form a rain dance around Brandon. And he'll be tucked neatly away back there in the holler. Sirs, there's a reason why we don't have any information pertaining to Summer Wells. Because people are going to start asking questions. The sheriff's son's a pedophile, and he's investigating a case where possibly there's SA involved, many accusations against the daddy, and yet nothing. Not a peep, not a drop. No more searches. Nothing. My. Well, I've already left a message with the news reporter. She and I have become fast acquaintances, and she seems very diligent for news stories because she just capitalized off a story I put at her feet pertaining to a domestic violence victim, now survivor. And that story just aired on the news 2 weeks ago. Please check your local listings for that said news story. So I don't think she'll have any problem with going to her producers to do a little digging on Mr. Lawson and Mr. Brandon. It's amazing what you can find out when you start typing people names into the computer. Shut your mouth. Go to change.org, everybody. Sign the petition. Won't take you but a few minutes. You do not have to put your legal name up there. Why don't we read this petition to the classroom? Shut your mouth. Well, I declare. That last article I brought you was by the Cleveland Progress. Change.org is my next source of information. At the top of this page, it says change.org, legal petition page for those who are curious. Investigate Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, demand his resignation. So far, they have 3,060 votes. They're trying to get to 5,000 signatures. The son of Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson was sentenced on 4 counts of attempted aggravated sexual battery that spanned across 2 years. And if you need to know who started this petition, his name is Trevor Lee. Brandon Lewis Lawson is set to serve 1 year after pleading guilty. The sentence was initially 20 years, but was reduced to 1 year with the requirement of registering on the sex offender registry. The larger issue, however, is the fact that he spent time in Hawkins County Jail run by his father and also had his case kept quiet until the day he pled and his sentence was reduced. Well, my, look up there. Because I do find it strange when the queen goes into the YouTube search, she can't find anything of legal standing of a news report. I guess I have to be specific of the news agent to carry the news. How about that? Yes, indeed. 3,060. Okay, let's finish reading this petition. The Hawkins County Sheriff's Office deactivated their Facebook profile as well as their website link in preparation for this news breaking. Well, my, look up there. Well, shut your mouth. Sheriff Lawson has no business being involved in his son's case, and this sets a dangerous precedent for future offenders who will use this case as precedent to lighten their sentences. Lastly, this creates much doubt into the fair and objective investigative ability for Lawson in the Summer Wells case. If he can't separate himself from a conflict of interest, he could easily put things above the true goal of the investigation into the disappearance of Summer Wells, which is getting justice for her, no matter who's involved. We must demand that an entity investigates the role Sheriff Lawson played in the case of his son. If he wrongfully protected his son, he must resign. There is no place for preferential treatment in our justice system, especially by the man tasked with leading an investigation into the disappearance of Summer Wells in his county, which has been active for 16 months and has led to 0 arrests, answers, or charges. This petition came up 2 weeks ago. At that time, he had 984 signatures. As of today, it just went up. Thank you, you all. 3,078. 18 of you have just signed the petition. Thank you so very kindly. God is good. And I will also send this to the news agents as I am talking to you all right now, so that she can put this in her data to her producers. Sending it. It has just now been sent. Thank you all so much for following the content. Please sign the petition at change.org. 3,000 plus signatures as I sit here in this live. How about that? Took down their Facebook page. Who takes down a Facebook page in your law enforcement? So people can't even put anything of value on your damn website, such as great job, congratulations. Oh, welcome our new K9. Welcome our new officers, deputies. Oh, Big Bubba died yesterday. What about that? Who takes down a fucking website of a police or sheriff's department? That shows suspicion, guilt. Because whether you like it or not, people are entitled to their opinion. You don't take down a website because what? You got complaints? People started saying nasty things on there? That's why you did it. Oh, what happened? 1 year, 20 years for trying to mess with children. Are you corrupt, sir? Are you all nasty over there? Are you all operating some type of underground children's ring, trafficking ring? You know, that's what they're saying, but that comes with the territory. That comes with the territory. And by no means is everyone working for the sheriff's department dirty, corrupted. But you will be grouped as such because of this case of Brandon Lawson. Because we all know that 1 year is nothing for trying to seduce a minor. How you can't hear? Hit the link if you have something you want to say about this Ronnie Lawson and this case, this 1 year case, because this is baffling to me. Very sick. Definitely no justice, no peace for anybody. Putting the link down. Why do you say that, Dev? I don't know. You might need to check your settings. Imagine a crime that has been swept under the rug all these years. What crime might that be? The crime of the trying to seduce children? Well, my thing is, what else has he done? Because if you didn't let the public know he got arrested, you didn't notify the newspapers, he was investigated. Nobody knew anything until he actually went to court, which is very strange. Then yes, you would question anything that's been done by this Brandon. It's very sad. Being an SA survivor, he just give me the creeps. I have a creep radar. So have you been following the Summer Wells case before this incident with his son? Did he give you the creeps a year ago if you followed the Summer Wells case? The point is you don't know people. And this boy is obviously a pedophile. He's probably touched other children. They never came forward. You have to now ask yourself, has he actually touched and or penetrated any other children? And did his family father know about it and have other people come forward and they hushed it up or paid them off or threatened them? Hit the link if you have an opinion pertaining to the title of this video. Very sick. This is why we have the crimes we have, because people are coddled. They're aided. They get a free pass. They get a reduction by the judge. They get a bond. They get a bail, lighter sentence. This is why we have crime in America. We keep having crime. And then everybody cries later when somebody ends up dead or missing. Oh, I guess we should have gave him more time. No, you don't let him out. There's no such thing as more time for a sadist. So long as you let them out, they will reoffend and may even take a life. That has been proven. There's no getting out when you mess with kids, touch kids, penetrate children, rape women, boys, men. It's all the same. One day it's attempt, the next day they're penetrating the child. I thought he had penetrated the child. Maybe I misunderstood the affidavit I read. I don't know. It's disgusting either way, because you don't have no business being near a child. All these beautiful women out here, what do you want with a little girl? Gosh, I'm trying my best not to use profanity. This type of topic, that's why I don't like talking about kid stuff. I don't like talking about nothing pertaining to children. And I do not like talking about SA. That's just a topic I do not like discussing. Yes, because they're ill. It's a high compulsion. It's just a compulsion that they can't stop. Many experts have said this. They can't be cured. So what do? Because they can't walk around. That's just out. Can't walk around. Get the hell out this chat. Nobody's listening to what you're talking about. You ain't talking about nothing. Well, that's why you signed a petition, dear. There's a petition.
Bluetooth connected.
Confessions of a child molester. Can offenders be rehabilitated? Thank you for joining me. ABC4 Utah is the source. Since nobody wants to hit the link.
Brittany Johnson goes one-on-one with a child sex predator and also dives into the topic with a clinical director for answers. Tonight, confessions of a child molester.
90% of the time, a child will be abused by someone in their circle of trust, according to Prevent Child Abuse Utah. Tonight, you'll hear from a Utah man who was sent to prison for sexually abusing close to 24 children in his neighborhood. He underwent therapy and now claims he's the safest man in his community. But can therapy rehabilitate a pedophile? He preyed upon and abused more than 20 neighborhood children. He agreed to talk to ABC4 News about his crimes.
I've had to confess to my crimes so many times. It makes me ill.
During his reign of terror, he victimized his own children. We have agreed to conceal his identity in an effort to protect his victims.
Okay, I blew it being a good father, but my intentions were always good.
Court documents reveal that over several years, he exposed himself and touched children inappropriately.
I wanted my kids to be educated, but it was hard to tell the difference between just keeping it on an education level and not get involved in the sex part of it, because like I said, it was enjoyable.
Records also state he had
God.
sexual intercourse and sodomized some of his young victims.
was very working with my religious leader, because I realized that I'd gone too far and this was not right. And
Throw
I
up.
wanted to stop it. So I was talking with him, and I was going to LDS Social Services. And but once you've committed the crime,
Mormon
there's
Church.
no way out.
A court-ordered psychological evaluation found his, quote, ability to rationalize his sexual offenses bordered on delusional.
I find young children beautiful and sweet and innocent, and I can see how it's considered disgusting.
Locked behind bars from 1997 until 2009, the self-proclaimed reformed pedophile asserts the therapy he received in prison successfully rehabilitated him.
Therapy works if the person having the therapy believes it and puts it into effect and understands it, and they have to want to make it work. But my main deterrent is knowing what I want for the future and to be with my family.
Well, how are you going to do that? Nobody's going to let you learn our kids. Come on now.
To be a free person.
Somebody who has a compulsive personality that.
For insight into the rehabilitation of sex offenders, I sat down with Mace Warren, the clinical director for Alpha Counseling and Treatment, a provider which treats about 1,000 child sex offenders annually.
If rehabilitation is based solely on, does the person return back to prison after committing a new sex crime, then we're very successful with that. If rehabilitation is, they never have a adverse thought about a child again, maybe not so much.
Warren says even after therapy and treatment, offenders can still have an attraction toward children.
That will happen. There's some theories out there that would say.
I don't understand what he's saying. Is he saying that he can work with them better if they come back and go to jail? I got to play that again. That don't make no sense what he said.
Of somebody who has a compulsive personality that.
For insight into the rehabilitation of sex offenders, I sat down with Mace Warren, the clinical director for Alpha Counseling and Treatment, a provider which treats about 1,000 child sex offenders annually.
If rehabilitation is based solely on, does the person return back to prison after committing a new sex crime, then we're very successful with that. If rehabilitation is, they never have a adverse thought about a child again, maybe not so much.
Warren says even after therapy and treatment.
I don't understand that. A person tells you they haven't had a thought about being with a child. You're not going to ever know if they was really with a child or not. So what is he trying to say? They're lying? It sounds like he's saying they have a better chance of treating the patient if they return back into the system for the sex crime again. I don't understand. How do you come to that basis? That sounds like if they came back again, then they want to be with children. And the compulsion is greater because they did it again. I don't understand this, doctor. Hell, maybe you're a damn child molester. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sick of this bullshit.
Treatment, offenders can still have an attraction toward children.
That will happen. There's some theories out there that would say your sexual attraction doesn't necessarily change. It expands over time.
To help offenders cope with their adverse attraction towards children, Warren relies on cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT helps offenders recognize deviant thoughts and allows them to respond to challenging situations in a more effective way.
Based on what we know in terms of treatment, if you're using a cognitive behavioral therapy model with the risk, need, and responsivity principles, you're going to see a dramatic reduction in risk of recidivism for offenders who are leaving treated versus untreated.
The latest data from the Department of Justice supports Warren's claim. The research shows the average recidivism rate for sex offenders receiving cognitive behavioral treatment at 9%. The recidivism rate for untreated sex offenders, 21%. But there's also contrasting research that contends treatment for sex offenders does not work. The statement has been a source of debate for decades. One study finds the effectiveness of treatment depends on a number of factors, including the type of offender, the type of treatment, and how much management, supervision, and support the offender has. There are currently 2,262 child sex offenders, inmates under the supervision of the Utah Department of Corrections. 472 are in active treatment. Child sex offender treatment for them is optional. Those choosing not to participate often have to serve their full sentence. 262 child sex offenders, inmates under the supervision of the Utah Department of Corrections. 472 are in active treatment. Child sex offender treatment for them is optional. Those choosing not to participate often have to serve their full sentence without parole, according to Warren.
What we do know
it didn't happen here.
That those who go untreated are more at risk for committing new sex crimes versus those who have been treated and transitioned.
I thought just opposite of what you just said.
Those crimes.
I don't think
Despite the fact that authorities sent the convicted child molester interviewed in this story back to prison in 2015 for violating his parole.
And to be completely cured is difficult, but you can change enough where it's not an issue anymore.
The ex-con insists he's the safest person in his community.
I believe I'm the safest person in this neighborhood.
I don't know what this guy was saying here.
Because what I've gone through, but knowing what I did and knowing the law, I actually know what to look for.
If you know someone who might be a victim of child abuse, there's help. Call Utah's Child Abuse Hotline. The number's on your screen, 855-323-3237. So, can sex offenders successfully rehabilitate back into society? It depends which research you believe in, how you define the word successful and rehabilitate. We have the research posted on our website, abc4.com. Back to you.
All right, everybody. ABC4 Utah was the source. A therapist spoke, and his words were confusing to me. And then the predator, he's a part of the Mormon church, and I believe he was talking about some type of dealings with the church pastor. I don't know what the hell he was talking about. Try not to even get my head wrapped around some of this stuff. Try to find you content that's of relevance to what we're talking about. Can a sex offender be cured? Well, in the end, you're not going to know if the person is cured or not. It's basically you're rolling the dice once, letting him or her out and praying that they won't reoffend. And in the end, that's just not good enough. We understand that people are flawed, but we have learned that this is a type of crime, sexual sadist in two forms, rape and of children, grown-ups and children. They usually reoffend. That has been proven. I'm trying to find some information of relevance to you all. Do you all remember the story about Stephen Collins? He's an actor on a TV family show that ended up having some encounter with a child. I don't know if you all would like to hear that information or not. Oh, Lord. What in the world? I'm trying to find some information. We can get an understanding. Let's see what this lady has to say.
Is that the person, psychopathic offenders, maybe rapists, child molesters, sadists, or any type of sex offender. They may not even be sex offenders, but engage in other forms of criminal or exploitive behavior instead. The hallmark of psychopathy is that the person doesn't have a problem in one area, such as sex, but has a pervasive lack of responsibility as well as a lack of attachment to other people. In this next section, Robert describes behavior that puts him in the category of power and control rapist, but doesn't necessarily tell us his problems are pervasive and that he has no capacity for attachment. That will come later.
Yeah, it was power and control. I was grooming her from the age of It started at about the age of 1.
Gosh.
When I was the punisher, I was the one who decided punishment over the children. I was the one who spanked the children. I was the one who punished the children. And if I seen the children doing anything wrong, even bickering, arguing amongst themselves, I would whip them and tell them, you know, just kids playing. I would tell myself, well, she's not going to be like that. She is going to be the perfect mate. And I told myself that.
What?
And I didn't molest her then.
Perfect mate.
The perfect
The fuck is he
mate.
talking about?
I was grooming her to fit me. To fit me.
And at what age?
I started at about a year. I started grooming her, whooping her, and telling her this, to do this, not do that. Then I molested her at 18 months old. And I thought to myself, I said, well, this is going to be easy. This is going to be easy. I'm going to have my own child, my own stepdaughter, which is really not blood related to me. And I'm telling myself these things. It's not blood related to me. When she grows up to be 14, 15 years old, I will have the perfect sexual mate for sexual purposes. Anything else didn't matter. It was sex. That was it. I didn't care about, really, honestly, I didn't love the child.
Obviously.
I wanted the child for
sexual
my
purposes.
own purposes.
Woo.
I was the one potty training her.
I can't do this.
Okay. My wife let me potty train her. I potty trained her. And at the first when I was potty training her, I gave.
Do you hear this motherfucker? He needs to be shot with a rifle. How can you look at a child, you're an adult, in that way, and then be looking at her in the future as a wife by the age of 15 or so? What the hell are you saying? Oh, I potty train her. Well, we know why you potty train her. That way you have access to her without her clothes on. Because she's got to pull her britches down or dress up to use the restroom. Sweet Mary, I'm done. Ugh, jeez. But this is the only way we're going to learn how they think. This is one man's personal testimony. Thank you for listening.
I gave her a break. Every now and then she could use the bathroom in her pants. But I was setting her on that stool for sometimes hours at a time, telling her to use the bathroom there. She started doing it. She started using the potty, and then all of a sudden I've been doing this for about 3-4 months, and she got good at it. And then all of a sudden she would use the bathroom in her pants, and I would tear her hide up. I would actually put bruises on her butt by spanking her by using the bathroom in her pants.
How'd you get a little kid to sit on the potty for hours? That's an awful long time.
Yell and scream. Tell her you're going to use that potty, and you ain't going to get off that potty till you use that potty. Have you used the potty yet? No. You're going to sit there until you use it.
The reporter is asking him, how do you get a child to sit on the pot for hours? And he basically says he did it. But this is what makes no sense besides the act itself. What type of life do you have that you will sit and watch a child sit on the pot for hours? You mean to tell me he sat in the bathroom and watched a little girl sit on the toilet? I want you to imagine this. Because, you know, all bathrooms are not made the same. So imagine being in a small restroom. And he is sitting here watching a child sit on a child's pot or regular toilet for hours. No, you were dreaming and daydreaming. Because 9 times out of 10, we already know she had to have her undergarments pulled down or pampered down. This is so ridiculous to me. I can't even believe I'm listening to this. This is insanity.
And as I look back, I was done that way, the same way she was.
See,
done.
That's where it came from.
How would you
He was done the same way.
I was justified in my head. She's gonna do what I want her to do, and that's it. She's gonna use the bathroom. She's going to let's say I told her that Daddy loves her and Daddy's going to take care of her and Daddy's going to give her anything she wants as long as she does what Daddy tells her. I got married at 19 and I kind of like refrained from, or tried to refrain from sexually acting out with any other ladies besides her, because I knew that AIDS was coming out and I knew that diseases were very frequent. And I started thinking to myself that if I stick with this one girl and just groom her, for one woman, I would groom her and get her to do what I wanted her to do. And eventually she did. She done what I asked her to do. It was no problem. It was a little
Thank
at a
you,
time,
Jennifer.
and I done it. And I manipulated her and coerced her. Manipulation, coercion, violent behaviors, striking her, get her so drunk she'd pass out, and I'd do what I want to with her. I'd force myself upon her when she was passed out, and did what I pleased. And sexual behavior got real out of whack. Yeah, I made her force objects into her vagina. I made her, forced her into
Threesomes.
watching pornographic material and stating that I wanted to do that certain thing to her. I wanted to have sex with her constantly. This was every day, 3 or 4
I told
times.
people
I
that
would
they have a
get it,
sexual
want it
drive.
as many times in a day as I could
It's
get
more
it.
than just control.
And I have got it up to 6 times
Sexual
in one
urges.
day. And still, I did not have enough. I wanted more. It was like a fix. I wanted it. And I did anything I could to get it.
And how many victims did you have total?
I have a total of 24 now. And I'm looking to see if I have any more.
And
You're
were
looking
these-
to see.
You said these were all kids except 2.
No. Oh, yeah, well, they were under the age of 18. Most of my victims were the age of 11 to 16.
And how did you get control over them? Was it through force and control and
It was
violence?
manipulate. No, it wasn't violence. It was more like manipulation. It was coercion. It was like, I'll buy you this. I'll give you that. And treating them like a person, but they were just objects. They were just objects. I was doing anything in my power to get them to give sex up, to give it up. And that's what I used to tell them. I said, give it up, after I would
He's nasty.
have done, say, groomed
He's not even
them up.
what you would call
And
subtle
then
or kind with the rape.
And they would comply. I would buy them beer, get them drunk, get them high, get them, any way that I could
Sexual sadist.
manipulate
Most
a
definitely.
woman or a girl, a child into having sex, I would do it.
In this section, you will see the lack of attachment to anyone
Yes.
that suggests Robert is not only a power and control sex offender, he is quite psychopathic as
Yes.
well.
The best way to fool people is to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Is to ask what they want, ask what they need. Do they need any help doing anything?
Mm-hmm.
Do they need any money, or do they need their car fixed? Do they need the grass cut? Do they need their children looked out for? Do they need
Dear God.
a job? Do they need anything to get them to think that I am a decent person and want to help? Trust me, I will help. And overall, that was a flat out lie.
What do you think makes people so trusting?
Well, what do you mean as far as trusting?
Trusting you.
Me? Because to trust me,
Well, he just told you.
I thought
Jesus.
that I could be trusted to a certain extent. But behind their behind their back. No, I would take things from them, steal from them, scope out things
One of
that
the
I could
signs,
steal.
theft.
Just see what I could get.
This is where I talk about.
Somebody.
This is what I keep saying about the crossover. When does the liar become the sadist? When does the petty thievery become the sadist? We've learned with sexual sadists and serial killers, they both were manipulators, liars, and thieves. When do they cross over? He also said, when their backs were turned, I would steal from them. So not only is he a manipulator, a groomer, has a high sex drive, violent, ordering them around, he also would steal from them. He's letting you know this is how he was able to manipulate the young girls or whomever. Hey, do you need any help? Can I do anything for you? Well, you have people like that. They're not actually wanting to help you. They're wanting to get something in return. As we say in the street, even swap ain't no swindle. I do for you, you do for me. Or you do for me and I take what I want. I help you out and I still take what I want. As I've always told you about the perpetrator, the narcissist, he or she, I did it because I could. I don't need a reason. You need a reason. I do not.
Just get what I wanted. That's what I wanted. I see something I want to get somebody to trust me. Like, say, if I was to go over and cut this person's grass, fix his car, loan him some money, and then and if I see something I want, like he's got a nice stereo, then, and I would set it up. I would say, hey, well, he's not home at such and such a time. That'd be the perfect time to go get me a stereo.
Yeah,
So
you all the way right. You on a whole nother level.
I know exactly how to get in through the back way.
It's a whole nother
I'll
level.
even go into his house and open
See, that's
the
a
window
person that would be a rapist. I can see.
I was looking out for them.
Let me stop here. I can see this guy. I don't know where he is today because this is older content. As you look at the video, it's very old. It's 10 years ago. This is the guy that would be the rapist. This is what I'm talking about. What is the crossover? At what point does the sadist cross over? Because eventually, as I've told you, many rapists become murderers as not to be apprehended. Okay, she told on me. They come looking. They come asking questions. They don't get the proof they need. I get to walk free. Oh, I still want to rape, but I'm going to make sure the next time there'll be nobody to tell. You will never call the police because I'm going to strangle you, cut you, shoot you next time, next victim. So you see that sometimes there's a crossover with the sadism because I've always told you this. How far will you go to keep the secret? And many people have done this. Many men have done this, silenced their victims by death, as to continue to re-offend and not have to ever be identified as a perpetrator. Lord have mercy.
Number one, for me, I didn't have any empathy for anybody else because it seemed to me nobody had any empathy for me. I wasn't going to give anybody any empathy who didn't give it to me. And that was it. That was bottom line. You don't, I didn't have people cry for me or tell me, ask me if I needed anything.
Wow.
Then, I wouldn't use any empathy. I would fake it. Now, faking
exactly.
Like saying I know how you feel.
Sociopath.
I've been in
yes.
that situation before.
Yes.
I've done that and it didn't turn out all that hot.
Yeah.
And I would fake it, but there wasn't no empathy there. That was just a show. That was just to tell. That was just to get the person to say, well, hey, he seemed like he's pretty good fellow. And that was manipulation all the way.
I'm aware how disturbing this film is. I made it because I've seen children report acts of sadistic abuse and not be believed because the listener refused to believe that such things happen. It's easier to deny malevolence than it is to face it. But we have no hope of detecting and stopping this kind of behavior if we don't learn something about it.
Exactly, that's true.
I made this film in the hopes that the next victim won't report 6 or 7 times as Gerald's victim did
Wow.
and still not be believed.
What are the odds? 6 or 7 times his victim reported him and nobody believed the child, the girl child. And as you heard in this commentary, he preferred them about 11 to 16 years of age. He would offer them things in exchange. He would then assault the girls. 6 or 7 times is that's a lot of times to tell somebody, somebody's touching me, somebody's penetrating me, and nobody's believing them. And we know that people will not believe their children. Why, I do not know. What would make you assume a child would make up a story when they don't even know anything about being molested? Don't even know what the word means, never had sex, don't know what sex is, but will come to you and say, he's touching me, daddy's touching me, uncle's touching me, grandpa's touching me, my brother's touching me. Why in the fuck would you think that's made up? And yes, you do have some diabolical young women who will make up false allegations. And that is a very slippery slope to cross, because some people have been falsely accused of rape and SA. And I don't wish that on anyone, because you will never be the same once you've been accused of a crime that you did not commit, no matter what it is. And you can end up losing your own life or drove to kill yourself trying to vindicate yourself. So I don't wish that on anyone. This is why you have to be very careful, as I've told you 1,000 times, about the company you keep, being around people and their children, holding children, touching children. Whether you're a woman or you're a man, you need to be very careful about being in the company of people's children, being alone with people's children. I advise you to only be around children in an open setting. Do not be alone with somebody's child. Always have an eyewitness, such as an adult. If it's just to hold a conversation. And we know that sometimes that's impossible, because perhaps you're a teacher. You need to speak to a student alone. Well, everyone's out of the room in order for you to hold your conversation. It's something personal, something about their grades. But make sure you're sitting at a far distance, so that way nobody can say, well, he was sitting in front of me, he was sitting too close, he was stroking my hair. You have to know when even being affectionate towards a child can be deemed inappropriate, especially when you start touching them, rubbing their hair, rubbing their shoulders. A child may become uncomfortable, and that's normal. They should. Because maybe they were taught, hey, nobody's supposed to rub your shoulders, rub your back. And sometimes children need a hug, but you have to be careful in being around children and touching them. Thank you for your patronizing this network today. Where else can we take this conversation? Lord have mercy. Very scary. $79 viewing. Next commentary, Oprah Winfrey.
Me is definitely going to help you protect your children. So there are really 4 things that I want you to take away from this show. First, at least 90% of child molesters are people you know. They are not strangers lurking in the bushes waiting to steal your children. We're talking about family friends, uncles, fathers, brothers, neighbors. And that means less than 10% of molesters are the strangers who are abducting kids that you see on the news. Less than 10%. Second, molesters seek out and seduce vulnerable, needy kids, and then they gain their trust. It's all very calculated, and it's all very deliberate, because without trust, as you're going to hear them say over and over today, the sexual abuse is not possible. Trust is the number one factor that they need to succeed. Third, the abuser is so conniving and they manipulate their victims. So in most cases, the molestation actually feels good. That confuses the child into blaming themselves when it's never the victim's fault. And fourth, what should you be looking for? You're going to hear in these molesters' own words what they believe every parent needs to know to stop it. So watch and listen carefully, because this is a group session with 4 molesters, their therapist, Dawn Horowitz person, and me. Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I really come with, I can't say no judgment, but I come with an open mind, not to judge you, but to try to understand. And to try to understand so that we can help other people understand, so that your words will not be in vain. That's the wish and prayer that I have for this session with us today, okay? So the other victims, your other victims, did you know them?
Yes.
You knew all your victims. So everybody here knew all their victims.
And that, I think, is such an important part, and that is part of the educational part. That
Let me say that there's one on the panel he's younger than the rest of the men that are about to speak. He has long hair. He's a younger looking guy. And Miss Winfrey is interviewing these guys with the therapist. A very interesting situation here. This is uploaded to the OWN network a year ago if you need verification for the information.
we really wanted to get across is, you know, that whole stranger danger myth.
Mm-hmm. Some guys are hiding in the bushes, but 90% are not.
At least 90% are not. They're able to molest and rape and abuse their victims because they have a relationship, because they know them, because they can set them up.
Because there's trust.
And
Because there's trust.
And because there's trust. How old was she and how old were you?
I was.
This is the younger guy.
And she was 9 or 10.
By this time, you convinced yourself she wants it.
I have myself so convinced that I'm having fantasies of us running away somewhere where we could live as man and wife, where no one would know we were related.
Would you say you cared for this person?
Yeah,
Would you say you loved her?
absolutely.
What do you think you did to her? When you think about it, have you thought about it?
I have spent a lot of time thinking about it.
And what do you think you did to her?
I killed who she could have been. I murdered a person. And just because she's still alive today and walking around and breathing, and even because she's just starting to make a better person of herself, getting back in school, getting her life on track, that doesn't take away anything from what I've done.
Have you had contact with your victim
Yes,
since you told?
yes. A few years ago, I was contacted by her therapist.
What has she said to you?
She told me she forgave me. And I have a real problem with that because I don't think it's forgivable.
When I heard David say that he killed who she could have been, that was one of the most powerful things I've ever heard anyone, particularly a sex offender, say, because that is the absolute truth. When a child is abused, it changes who they are. It kills their spirit. Today, we're going inside the minds of child molesters. Recently, I had a rare opportunity to sit down with 4 men, all convicted sex offenders, who are willing to talk openly about why they do what they do. I know what they have to say will help you parents protect your children. And I promise if you can just withhold your judgment and really listen to what they have to say, there is really priceless information that can keep America's children safer. So tell me why you would agree to do this interview today. Why did you want to do this?
I would like to tell the people of the world, the parents, the guardians, on a few things that they should be watching out for. When the person is paying more attention to the child than being with the adults. They go to a party, but there's children there. And he spends more time with the children than he does with the adults at the party.
Very good
Red
point.
flag.
Red flag, definitely red flag.
How were you able to groom
guy.
this 5-year-old girl?
She relied on me quite a bit instead of her parents. And
She called you grandpa.
yes.
You were a friend of the family?
Yes, yes. She grew to trust me. And I took advantage of that trust.
How were you able to make that okay in your mind? Because this is a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old.
I thought she liked it. Okay, I found out later that it hurt her. Okay, just touching her hurt her.
But what if she did like it? Because if you're doing your job well, I always say this, you know, having been abused, that if an abuser is doing his job well, you've never experienced sex before, this is your first sexual encounter, they're doing their job well, it's bound to feel good. And so what if it feels good sexually? Does that make it okay?
At that time, I needed attention myself.
But a 5-year-old's going to give you the attention that you, as a 65-year-old man, need?
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me, Darren, why you want to do this? Why you want to expose yourself this way?
If I could stop what's happened to my daughter to happen to another daughter out there, and to prevent another father who's romancing some kind of ideas like I had in my head about molesting his daughter, maybe stop it before it happens. If I can save one child from
What do you
being
say to
molested,
that father right now? Because we're reaching millions of people all over the world. Unquestionably, some who are watching, many who are watching, no doubt, are harboring fantasies about their daughters or stepdaughters or somebody in the family. What do you want to say to that person?
if you're romancing those ideas, if you're having fantasies about young children, your daughters, anything like that going on in your head, go get help. It doesn't go away. It's deep-seated issues that cause it, and they need to be all worked out. And trying to do it by yourself is not going to work.
So, why are you doing this, David?
Even if I could impress upon one set of parents, just be better parents.
What does that mean?
Well, I was able to molest my victim because she was severely neglected. I was the only one there in her world who would listen to her, who would validate her, and that gave me such power over her.
And children are always looking for love. And sometimes I would say about myself, because you all know I was molested, right? Raped at 9 and then molested for many years at 10 and 12 and 13, 14 years old by members of my family and family friend. But to hear you say that is affirming for me, because I was also one of those little girls who looked up to my uncle, looked up to my cousin, looked up to the family friend, and was manipulated. But for years didn't know that I was manipulated, and blamed myself for it, held myself accountable for it. Do you understand the damage that you have done?
I don't think I'm capable of understanding the damage that I've done. Just by looking at the effects I've had on her life, that I know that there's been a huge amount of damage, but
Can you talk about that a bit? Because the thing that has frustrated me over the years in trying to get parents to understand that first, it's about seduction. It's about grooming and seducing your target. Am I correct? It's about grooming and seducing. And you choose your targets. So I think it would be really valuable for parents to understand how they're chosen. You talked a little bit about that, David, about you look for the child that's neglected, you look for the child that's needy, you look for the child that isn't getting a lot of attention, which was the case with your victim. What else do you see in their eyes that lets you know that you can get away with it? Because nobody's choosing any child. I say this to all my girls at school. Nobody's choosing any child who has the confidence and the self-esteem and is going to, that they think is going to tell. Nobody's choosing anybody that they think is going to tell. Am I correct? All right. So what is it that you see in that child that allows you to believe you can get away with it?
I see anger in her, anger against her parents, retaliation against the parents,
I see trust for them towards me.
Because I think what we need to clear here is that you couldn't victimize unless there was trust.
Right.
That's the thing that people don't understand. It only happens this way when there is trust, right? You couldn't do it unless there was trust. This is one of the most important lessons I want you to take away from this show. Child molesters charm their victims into trusting them, and they can often do that because they're close family, friends, or relatives. And many of them really, truly do not believe that they're doing any harm because they don't think that they're causing pain. Their goal is to bring sexual pleasure to the child so the child can then bring sexual pleasure to them. And that is why it is so hard for you to say your child. It's a calculated dance of seduction. Listen carefully. Let's talk about the grooming process, because I think I was 42 years old before I recognized that I'd been groomed. So I think if we can save one person out there who has been molested and is still blaming themselves, or who doesn't understand that you guys are pretty conniving, manipulative, and actually smart in your seduction abilities. So how were you able to seduce? How did it start?
Give them back rubs and foot rubs, and gets them used to physically being touched, and it kind of creates a bond.
Getting them used to your hands being on them.
Exactly.
And then trusting that, so that by the time you reach for a breast or you reach for the genital or whatever,
Yeah.
it's easier. You're shaking your head because
that's very much how I initiated my grooming process. Is I would listen to her, and then I would listen to her with my hand on her shoulder, and then we would cuddle on the couch together, and then priming her for me to be physically intimate with her.
very much like a couple on a first or second date, is it not?
Right.
Darren, what do you want to say?
I knew it was wrong, but I justified it in my own mind by saying it was a special thing between us, and I wasn't hurting her.
We've heard people say, even publicly, I would never harm a child. You thought you weren't harming her.
No.
You thought you were doing what? Bringing her physical pleasures? What you said?
Physical pleasure.
And you thought the same thing, Lee?
Basically the same thing. I truly believe I was bringing her physical pleasure.
And he messed with a
And
5-year-old.
that because it was physical pleasure, that made it okay. I'm saying at the time.
Let's chop that up. How in a person's mind could they possibly think they were bringing pleasure to a child? The last person that spoke, he's an older man. I believe he's in a disguise, a wig. But he's much older, 65. How in the world could you think you were bringing a 5-year-old pleasure? You were old enough to be her grandfather. Or great-grandfather, perhaps. Almost. So how could you look at a child and say, I'm going to bring a child pleasure when they're not even supposed to be having sexual relations with anyone? Why are you desiring a child? Why a child? As you heard in the last commentary, that guy who had no empathy, we'll chop that up here in a minute. He didn't feel anything. He let that be known. He said, so why should I care about her feelings? Nobody ever cared about me. So you have all type of different sadists. And one guy here, he molested his own child, and he's agreeing. I thought I was bringing her pleasure too. Very interesting.
You thought that?
Yeah, because she was pleasing me and I was pleasing her.
You didn't think that you were a disgusting old man? You didn't think that? No,
Uh,
seriously, Lee. You
no.
didn't think at the time?
At the
I'm a
time,
disgusting old man.
after it got started, yes. After I started it, to me, it was just too late to stop.
Why was it too late to stop?
Like I said, I thought she enjoyed it, so I would make her happy, and I would do things to her, and
What kinds of things?
fondle her,
Touch her?
touch her, yeah, fondle,
So if I were to ask all of you, none of you thought that you were causing harm at the time.
Not at the time.
So if you've been carrying the guilt, the shame, which is the true horror of thinking that you are to blame for your own abuse simply because it felt good, that is exactly what they wanted you to feel, so that you wouldn't tell. It is not your fault.
Oprah Winfrey. Ooh, what a story. Very scary.
Basage says he was groomed and then molested by family friend Dwayne Hurley. The abuse finally stopped this past January when, in a fit of rage, Daniel stabbed Hurley to death. A judge convicted Daniel of voluntary manslaughter and aggravated assault and sentenced him to 5 years probation.
I didn't want to tell people I was having a sexual relationship with Dwayne. I kept it to myself. I didn't want to tell my parents and stuff because I couldn't tell them. I didn't know how to tell them. The shame that he's going through is undescribable from a male's point of view. My son was ready to take whatever they wanted to give him, which was the rest of his life in prison, rather than tell what happened to him.
On the tape, you called it a sexual relationship. Did you realize at the time you were being molested, or had you thought by the time you snapped on January 22nd that it really was a sexual relationship you were having with them?
Well, I didn't realize, it was molestation, but I wouldn't put it as a sexual relationship because I look at a sexual relationship, both people they're okay with it, which I wasn't. So I just said, sexual relationship because what
sex was happening in the relationship.
Yes.
And I think that's such a really great point you make for all kids who don't understand when it's happening to you, that is what is happening, that now you can use the word groom because you realize that there was a process of getting you ready for the actual, sexual act or molestation. I remember many years ago on this show, some of you watching now may remember, we did a show about how to protect your kids. And his tactic is a classic child molester's tactic. We did it with little kids in the park where a guy comes and says, can you help me find my puppy? Or can you take care of my puppy? For you, it wasn't a puppy. It was actually, a dog. Mm-hmm. And that's how the lure started for you. What is interesting about this is that your parents, having been, made aware of the kind of world we live in, were cautious about that, went online and checked to see if he was a molester, and there was no record of him. What did he tell you that what was his way of earning a living?
He was a counselor or something like that, and worked with kids, but we found out later he wasn't.
It was all a lie.
Yeah.
It was a lie. Wow. So the grooming process, which I, for years, have been trying to, tell the world about, that if a sexual molester is any good at his job, his number one job is to make the child feel that they are a part of it so that they don't tell. Because once you tell, his game is up.
Yeah.
So the first time, and everybody always wants to know this, why did you keep going back?
I felt like I had to. Like, I couldn't get away from him. I already knew that, and it was my fault. I was the one who showed him my general, which started it, and he kept using that against me. Well, what would your parents think? I just felt like I had to be there. I had to go there, and even if I didn't, he'd come find me. Mm-hmm. Like, if I tell him no, I'm not going to come over, then he was gonna say something.
Wow.
I've said this to years for parents. Once a child doesn't tell, if you don't tell the first time, then the guilt and shame of it, the next time and the next time and the next time, then you feel like you can't tell because now you're in it.
And it builds.
And it builds.
and it builds. During Daniel's sentencing, the judge, who happens to be a very enlightened person apparently, read this quote from forensic psychiatrist Dr. Michael Wellner. And this quote says this is for every parent to understand. A skillful groomer, a skillful abuser gets into the child's DNA and becomes a part of the child. And the child can't cast him off regardless of the age. I think that's pretty powerful, don't you?
Yeah.
So the 22nd, you're in his house and you're having a conversation about the anniversary that you're going to have with your girlfriend coming up in 2 days.
Wow, he had a girlfriend.
And what happened?
So after we're done talking, he goes off in his room. He's like, "Why don't you come in?" I'm thinking in my head, all right, I know what's going to happen.
You know what's going to happen meaning what?
I know he wants to have sex. I know that's what's coming. I'm on the computer sitting there like I acting like I can't even hear him. He starts talking and he's like, "So, all this stuff's going to cost about what?" And
55 times. He stabbed
$80. So, he's like, this stuff isn't free, right? And I look at him and I see him looking at me, and then that's when I just snap.
And what does snapping feel like? I don't know what that means.
I realized he's going to keep molesting me, and it's not going to stop. There's nothing, obviously, I can do or say to stop him. And I just seen the pickle jar, and I just picked up and hit him with it, and then the rest are gone.
So had you not thought about ever telling somebody, or what would happen if I told somebody, or how I can get myself out of this other than ending his life? Had you not thought about that?
Well, I thought about telling, but I couldn't. I didn't know how. I couldn't. The only one I could talk to was him, but I didn't think about ending his life or anything.
So when you started stabbing, you stabbed him 55 times.
Yeah.
Did you realize that you'd stabbed him that many times?
No, I had no idea.
And do you think that was just your rage, or what happened in that moment?
I think it was more rage. I wasn't there. I was doing it, but I was somewhere else. And then I ended up realizing that I'm stabbing him, and I stopped. And
what was he doing?
He's just laying there at the end.
Wow.
Do you have remorse?
I do, on some extent. I mean, I feel, I do know I killed a man, and it's not right. I mean, I don't feel great for killing someone. I know that's wrong. I feel relieved though now. You can understand what I'm saying. I feel relieved because everything's done, but I feel bad to an extent.
So Daniel could have spent at least 15 years in prison if convicted of the original charge of murder. And as we said, instead, he got 5 years probation for a lesser charge of manslaughter. There are some people who feel that Daniel got away with murder and that the judge went too easy on him. Hi, YouTubers.
All right, everybody. That's the end of that commentary. How do you all feel about that? 5 years probation. Some will judge. Why did you go back? Because he was 16 years of age, a very tall young man, possibly could fight him off. I don't know. Depends on your perception. But he says that I kept going back because he would show up anyway. So one might say, well, so what if he showed up? Maybe that would be an opportunity for you to go ahead and just tell your parents, he's only coming around because he's touching me and penetrating me. But for some reason, he feared saying anything. Well, he didn't get a chance to get another victim because he stabbed him 55 times. And there's no telling how many boys he's molested if he is just only molested boys. But he got off lucky, but he was a minor. And my thing is, when people judge someone for committing such a crime, obviously they have not been in a child's shoes to be offended. Because it's easy to say a lot of judgment. Why did you go back? Why did you go back? You didn't have to kill him. You didn't have to kill him. Well, obviously he was tired of it. Because in your mind, you're telling yourself as an outsider, why go back? Why go back? But he gave his reasoning. And you have to remember, he is still a child. Because you're trying to put it together in your head. Why would the person go back knowing this is wrong? They don't like the sex. But he's going to keep coming by, so I just go on and go over there anyway. But obviously the boy was tired because why would he stab him? And then he stabbed him a lot of times. 55 is more than a lot. I'm talking about almost 60 wounds. And he tells you he's relieved. He knows what he did was wrong, but he's relieved. And I would get that. I don't have to worry about him coming over, popping up, showing up, and I've got to feel obligated to have sex with this grown man. And I'm looking at him thinking to myself, wow, he's a tall guy and 16 years of age. He didn't think to ever try to fight the man the first time that he tried to touch him. Because I remember at the beginning of this, he said something about, I showed him my penis. So I'm wondering if he asked to see it. I can't see that a child would pull his penis out deliberately to show a grown man. And then you also hear this commentary, he had a girlfriend. So imagine that. Liking a girl, seeing a girl, don't know if he was having any type of sexual relations with his girlfriend, but then going over to this man's house and being penetrated by a man. And then having a girlfriend to boot. And then keeping the secret. And also feeling obligated to go over to this man's house, knowing what he wanted to do. But on that fateful day, he let him know, I'm not going in that bedroom. I don't want to go in there. Wow, that's deep. Then you heard 4 different men, different ages, talk about, at least 3 rather, talk about their offenses with children. One guy was a father, molested his own child, thought she wanted it, wanted to please her. Same thing with the older one, that was 65. He wanted to please her. A little girl, 5, and that's the one in the chat said, what does a child know about feelings, sexual urges? Most children have not even been taught about sex. Never had sexual education. I played this content because, as Oprah said, knowledge is key. You need to know what to look for, how children are groomed, how this type of act persists in our world. And also, hopefully, Ronnie Lawson will see this content to hear the victims, hear a victim speak, boy child speak. Maybe he can learn something. I do not know if he's a sexual offender himself, if he groomed his own son, had porn around his son. I don't know, but he needs to hear something because we are baffled, some of us, to know that you hit this case and people only found out about it after he pled guilty. He only got 1 year in a county jail. That's a cakewalk. How in the world do you think that's justifiable for a child? 19 years probation. We already know he'll possibly fuck up somewhere down the road because they always do. And if he's been battling these demons for a while, he's not going to stop. Maybe he'll get some type of justice in that county jail. I don't know. But I know that once he's released, he will be looking for a victim. And he may also be angry that occurred to any of you. That when Brandon gets out, he will need a victim. He will need another scapegoat, possible punching bag to let off steam. That girl did this to me. Girls told on me. I need revenge. Got to get back what the devil stole from me. And we've already heard about that. 7 times fold. Whatever the devil stole, he's got to give it back. Now, although Brandon has been working for the devil, it doesn't matter. He's going to possibly be angry. He's going to probably want vindication for being in that jail 1 year. But Brandon, you deserve more than that. And the judge has kindly erased what is deserving. You deserve the 20 years, day for day. But we know that you did 20 years. You probably wouldn't make it in there. And by the time you got out, years from now, 60-something years of age, you would be a shell of a man. You would be sick if you live long enough. And 9 times out of 10, Ronnie Lawson wouldn't even be alive when you got out. But you would never be the same because you still would be on the register and you'd have to find a way to live and eat. So that means somebody would have to leave something for you while you sat in a prison, for 20 years. But you've been, I'm going to say vindicated, basically, because what's 1 year? That's nothing. That's nothing compared to the mindset of the children who've been touched. Very sick situation. I'm going to go back in and read this article one more time. This is a very sick, bizarre mess. Very, very sad. Please sign the change.org to investigate Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, demand his resignation. It is now at 5,000 signatures. This petition is more likely to get picked up by the local news. Okay, I see now. 3,085. Sorry about that. It's gone up a little bit. Oh, man. Okay, let's see. Let me get this. Read these charges again. Brandon Lawson, son of Hawkins County, Tennessee Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, pled guilty. Oh, don't tell me you're not going to let me read it again. These articles are so grimy. They won't let you go back in and reread the information. Hold on a minute. This is strange. Not won't let me read it again. They want you to sign up for these articles. Isn't that something? I'll just type the name in again. Very sick. Sadly, they have another young man by the same name that was missing, but his remains were found. No, I can't find it for some reason. One second, you guys. Oh, this is weird. All right, I found another upload. Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson's son pleaded guilty on Thursday, October 13th, to 4 counts of attempted aggravated sexual battery, according to District Attorney General Dan Armstrong with the 3rd Judicial District. Documents filed in Hawkins County Criminal Court identify Brandon Lewis Lawson as the accused, but other identifiers such as age, relationships, alleged victims, and victims' age were not specified. The court documents indicate that the 4 counts of attempted aggravated sexual battery span across 2 years in 2018 and 2020. First offense allegedly occurred in August 2018, and the 4th occurred in March 2018. Okay, the 1st and the 4th, those sound weird. The 2nd and 3rd accounts reportedly occurred in April 2020 and December 2020. So there's a 2-year difference in between the 3rd and the 4th versus the 1st and the 2nd. All counts of attempted aggravated sexual battery are described as an offense that involves knowingly and unlawfully attempting to have unlawful sexual contact that would have caused bodily injury to the victim. The 4 alleged crimes are all happened in Hawkins County. While Lawson was sentenced to 20 years for the crimes, he will serve 1 year in a local jail and must be on the sex offender registry for life, according to Armstrong and court documents. Armstrong said Assistant District Attorney Cecil Mills prosecuted the case. And I guess that's why they have that black man's name up on the change.org. When you open that change.org, you will see an African-American man's face. He is obviously the attorney. Assistant District Attorney Cecil Mills prosecuted the case. So Cecil, talk to us. Why is he only getting 19 years probation? 1 year jail time for attempt. Is that the reason why? It's because he attempted to touch a child. He didn't penetrate the child. So we're going to put him on almost 20 years of probation. What else have you all swept under the rug up there in Hawkins County? Any other improprieties, children, rape, murder? And you all knew the people. You knew of the relatives. You were in good standing with them. So don't matter about their kid or brother or sister did something heinous. We'll just slide it under the rug, give them probation or a real short sentence because we're all friends up here. And to have this black man wrapped up in it as an attorney, very, very strange. So, Mr. Lawson, what do you know about Summer Wells? Some of us are curious. What do you know about her? What do you know about her case? Do you have some relation or dealings with Mr. Don Candace? I don't know. People are going to ask now. Since your son got a lighter sentence, they're going to wonder what all you know and what all have you been doing since you've been the sheriff? What other things have slid under the rug as the sheriff? Because you do have jurisdiction as far as bringing people in, arrests, knowledge of their comings and goings in jail, all of that. You hold a nice little title up the road. And as I said, what about the next time your son gets out of jail and he finds himself in another pickle? Will he be getting another set of probation on top of the 19 years? Or let me see, he goes to jail, comes back out, commits another crime, that probation is revoked. Is that how that's going to go? Then he'd have to do what? All of the 19? Is that what that means, the 19 years probation? If indeed he goes back out here once free and commits a crime, the 19 years is revoked. He'll have to do all of the 19 plus whatever charges, time for the second charge. Has he committed this type of crime before and you all hid it, pushed it under the rug? I'm curious. And who else has been in trouble up there that you all know of? And they got a lean sentence as well. Just curious. As I said, I hope you listen to this video and you can see what happens when people go far down the rabbit hole in this disgusting behavior and how it hurts the victims. And here you saw a 16-year-old boy who eventually killed his child molester. Stabbed him 55 times. That could be your son one day. Getting brutally stabbed by a child. Because they no longer want to play funny games with him. So what I want to know is, who are the victims? Who are they in relation to Brandon? Why was there a big interval between the sexual attempts, about a 2-year gap and 5 and 8 month gap? So that seems very strange to me. Who are the children and what is his relation to the children? Are these children he saw every other day, every other month? Church? What? Neighborhood children? What? Friends' children? Very shameful. That's okay. I'm about to check out of here myself. Because I've been on long earlier. Didn't mean for that live to go that long earlier, but I had a lot of information to bring y'all. Please check my library for my recent upload yesterday pertaining to Quentin Simon, his disgusting, vile relatives, and the second part of that video is pertaining to Donald Wells. As most of you know, he's been released from custody. And I was asking the question, would he return to YouTube since he was so fascinated with YouTube up until the early part of this year? Will he regain his crown to start jabbing with people, going on panels and talking? I think at this point, you don't have anything to say. You sat in there for 8 months or so. There's nothing else to say on YouTube or anywhere else. Best thing to do is move on with your life. I do not know if Utah is going to ever press charges against you. Probably not. Best thing for you to do is go live your life, since you and your wife don't have any more information about the disappearance of your daughter. But what I do find interesting is that someone said you all had a fire burning up there. I do not know if that is true or not, because I try not to bring up allegations that I don't have a receipt to. But let's just go out on a limb and say you and Candace were burning a fire up on the property. Why is that? Is it perhaps you all don't have any heat up there on the plantation, Donald? You've been gone so long. Candace has decided not to pay the damn bills up there. Because, it costs to live. So it doesn't matter if you're in a 800 square foot house, 1,200 square foot house. A house is a house. It needs water. It needs heat. It needs air conditioning. It may also need gas, natural gas, to either heat the place or heat the water. So I'm going to ask you, Donald, do you have running gas at your house? Was it on when you were released from custody? Were the lights on at the plantation? Did you have adequate heat and air at the plantation, 110? Or did you have to wait to go get all these services turned on? Because we know Candace had been missing in action for a while. She had gave YouTube a break. Hey, man. So who's to say if she was even paying for anything at that house? And I'm sure you would just be livid to come home from a jail, feet dangling off a cot, to go back to that little dusty box up on the hill with no gas, no water, no heat and air. Imagine that. But when you're used to slumming it, you probably said, oh, the hell with it. I'll turn everything on this week. Or do you have the money to turn these things on? Just curious. Did you have a stash somewhere Candace didn't know about? Because I'd like to know, did you leave her any money to pay the bills while you were gone? Because when you're using substances and alcohol, you may tend not to keep any savings. And the fact that you have not worked in many months, where is your money? I beg your pardon? Something wrong with whom? Not I. I tell the truth. I don't sugarcoat anything over here. I have no reason to. It is what it is. As we say, what is understood needs no explanation. So I'm just curious, what is on the plantation? Running water, heat and air, gas? Were you using air conditionings for upstairs, downstairs, separate rooms? Gas to heat your house and or water? Imagine that. No gas on to heat the water. That means Candace was taking cold baths, showers if there was even water turned on. You also have to pay sewer, possibly tax. I don't know how you all's bills run up there. Do you pay the water and sewer along with your electric? Or is it separate? My. What are you talking about? I just put it in there. Oh, I see. I left something out. I believe I am getting old. I'm starting to miss things. That's a sign I don't need to be doing these live streams. Because I just be missing stuff. I don't know what's going on with me. Let me try it one more time. I think I left something out. I'm doing this often. That's a sign I don't need to be doing this. Talk and get off and keep it moving. Go back to my old ways of just uploading the content. No live streams. Because this is just not working. I don't know what's going on. And somebody's down there upset because they couldn't get on the live stream. Got their panties all in a bunch. Oh, well. Life's a bitch. 96 viewing. Joe Dirt, please. Well, Rhonda, this is the Dirty South. Who's ever heard of calling someone a suspect and let them walk around free for coming up 4 weeks? It is now Tuesday, 1st of November. Happy November to everybody in the chat. Hell, I thought yesterday was the 1st. I got all turned around. So the holidays are coming up. Winter will be vastly approaching. And a child is missing down in Savannah. His mother will have been walking free 4 weeks tomorrow. How about that? So don't be surprised at the 19 years probation, dear. It is what it is. Ego trip, perhaps. I would bring her in without a body. I wouldn't care at this point. Send it to the grand jury and keep it moving. Thank you all so much. If there's anybody in the viewing audience that wants to give their opinion pertaining to Ronnie Lawson possibly being involved in corruption, his son's sentence of only 1 year in jail versus a 20-year sentence dropped down to 19 years probation, has to register as a sex offender, feel free to hit the link. If not, the Queen will check out of here. I've been on live coming up now. 7 hours. 5 from earlier. I can't even believe I went that long, but there was so much information to give out and play. That's why it took so long. But nonetheless, Ronnie Lawson, you need to hear what it's like to be a victim. Sad that you'd have to put the shoe on your foot to understand what it's like to be a child afraid of an adult male. That is what the young lady said in the earlier commentary. She's afraid of older men, as she should be now. Old nasty heathen wanting to touch and grope. Get a woman. All these beautiful women out here, why can't you all go find a woman? Or if you like boys, go find a damn man. Hell you want with a child. But as you heard these pedophiles say, they thought they were pleasing the child. So that means you're thinking the child has the mind of an adult. Why would a child want to be satisfied by a man? They don't even know what sex is. But see, that's the sick ideology of a pedophile. They think the children want it. I remember watching Oprah many years ago, and she had a pedophile on the stage speaking, and he was giving his testimony to how he became engaged in this debacle of living. He said, I would watch the little girl swing on the swing. and the little dress would flap up and down, flap up and down. He said to Oprah, you know, she was teasing me. And Oprah was like, what do you mean? He said she was teasing me by swinging on that swing with her dress going up and down. She was trying to entice me. And of course, you know, Oprah told him, you know, that child was not trying to entice you. She didn't even know you existed. You were there to watch her. She wasn't there to watch you. But he felt like the child was enticing him by her dress flowing in the air, swinging on a swing. This shows you how diabolical the mind is. And the mind can tell you a multitude of things, such as the child wants it, the child is enticing me, the child consented, they enjoy it. That's a sick mind. Very, very sick mind. And this man actually believed that the little girl swinging on the swing, minding her business, was deliberately tempting him to come to her. I'd never heard such craziness until listening to this garbage I listened today on this live, playing this one guy's commentary who was just utterly vile. Grooming his child on the toilet. I'd never heard such conversation in my life, but it goes to show you what's out here. Please go back to the earlier part of this live to get that commentary of a pedophile speaking how he groomed his daughter by potty training her. So really he was getting off by watching her attempt to urinate. He said he watched her for hours. Who has that kind of time? You couldn't even have a job to sit and watch someone sit on the toilet. But that lets you know how sick he was. As someone said in the chat, he was a control freak. Indeed, he was. He had a very high sexual appetite. Because as I've always heard, they love to say it's about control, but it's more than just control because they're also touching and penetrating. So it's got to be more than just control. Some of these men have a high sex drive, and this father did. He said it. I had to have it at least 6 times a day. I wanted it. I needed it. I took it. I didn't care what she wanted. It's what I wanted, what I needed. I didn't care about him. No feelings. Just an object. And he was talking about he likes sex all type of different ways, so forth and so on. So that lets you know it's more than just control. Because it has a sexual element to it. Violating sexually, it is about sex too. Not just tying somebody up and just watching them squirm. Waiting for them to beg you to untie them. You enjoy the sex as well. And I don't understand how you can enjoy sex with a child because a child is not equipped to give you anything back. So that makes no sense. But that's a sick person's ideology. Very, very sickening. But I played you this commentary to show you the minds of a few men, why they came to be who they are. One man spoke earlier in this commentary, an older man in disguise, saying he felt like he was rehabilitated. He's safe now to be around children. Safest man around in the world is what he said, which I don't believe that because many therapists have said it's a hard trait to treat. The compulsions are overwhelming and they drive the human to commit devious acts against children, adults as well, when you're dealing with rape. So therefore, you will need a lot of intense therapy. I won't doubt if you need shock treatment to try to overcome wanting to touch a child or rape an adult. But the one part of this live was possibly the most disturbing, listening to the one vile guy talk about grooming his own children and then wanting to have sex all day long as once I just said, well, damn, how could you work? You wanting sex 6 times a day. You're watching a child pee on the pot for 3 hours or more. That made no sense to me. It's like you couldn't have had a job to sit and watch somebody sit on a pot to pee and having sex with your own children 6 times a day. When did you work? And we heard a lot of men who say they have a high sex drive, but you don't expect to hear that they have that drive for a child. It's diabolical. Abomination, indeed. And I don't think you can be cured. And the way this man talks, this one talking about his children, desiring girls 11 to 16, grooming her, wanting her to be older to have sex with her from infancy. Let me make that clear. Who can think that far down the road as far as grooming and sexual deeds with a child? Misdeeds. Holding your child as an infant, saying, I can't wait till she gets older so I can have sex with her. It's the most preposterous thing I ever heard. But he said it. And he was nasty with it when he said it. I don't care about anybody because nobody cared for me. So you see, here is the narcissistic behavior. Woe is me. Hell no, I don't feel nothing for her and her and her and her, whether they were my child or not. I've crossed the line. I enjoy it. She probably enjoys it. That's his mindset. Can't wait till she gets older so I can fully be engulfed with her sexually. And I feel nothing for her. No empathy, no nothing. She is just an object to me. You hear this man saying this about his own child. You can't get any worse than that. He also said, I offered them help to groom them, lure them in. And then when their backs were turned, I would steal from them. Double back, break in the house, steal a stereo if I wanted it from that guy or friend. Woo! You can't make this up. So we're going from a sexual sadist, child molester, molesting your own children to stealing from people. See? The crossover. One bad trait to the next. And somebody that talked the way he talked, you could hear the anger in his voice. He was seething while he was speaking. He would be the type to murder you. And that's why I said, how does the thief become the murderer? How does the liar become the murderer? At what point do you cross over into madness from your deviant qualities, traits? Because a liar does not have to be a murderer, nor does a thief have to be a murderer. So how do these traits cross over to murder? And we have known this with rapists. They end up becoming murderers as to silence the next victim. There'll be no ID in me in a lineup, description, testifying in court. And I know of a case in California where a woman sexually assaulted and the rapist found her living in another city. I believe he got the information from his attorney because naturally her name has to be on the paperwork for the claim, for the charge. And he waited outside her home and he killed her because he wanted to make sure she did not testify in court when they finally got an ID on him. So here he is, free on bond, stalking his victim to make sure she doesn't show up to court to testify. And he took care of that. And naturally, they knew who to look for because they had an open case in court. You don't know people. And as you heard Oprah say, you can't trust anybody. Friend, family member, rabbi, pastor, preacher, father, brother, uncle, granddaddy, neighbor, family friend, all bets are off. People are people. The worst is a father molesting his own child or a mother molesting her own child. People feel like, well, my child doesn't go around strangers. Your child will be around a stranger at some point because they have to go to school unless you homeschool them. So therefore, they're in the schoolhouse with many strangers. Strange teachers, assistants, security staff, principal, assistant principal, janitors, cafeteria workers, and other children. Ronnie Lawson's son, Brandon, 1 year in jail, 19 years of probation. Will he be able to keep himself under control? Asked not to seek out children once free. Someone in the chat earlier yesterday said he was. I do not know if that allegation is true or not. That would be even more a slap in the face that he's somehow out and not doing the 1 year in jail. Is there corruption in the Hawkins County Sheriff's Department? Were any favors turned for this 1 year conviction, 1 year sentence? Why did he not get the entire 20 years? Is the district attorney disappointed? How did it come to be that the judge would only give him the damn 1 year? And I've looked up this crime, and 20 years is the standard. I looked it up 2 weeks ago when I brought you the first video about the son being arrested, Brandon Lawson. So why did this person in this state get 1 year and only 19 years of probation? It's hideous. Register on the sex offender registry. But what does that mean? If someone is cushy enough to leave you money and you don't have to work, will he have to work once released? Where will he get a job? How's that going to work? And as far as the Summer Wells case, what does Ronnie Lawson know about this case? Is he fully engulfed in solving the disappearance of Summer Wells? As most of you know, many speculated that she was sexually assaulted by her parent or parents. Now we have a sheriff in that same jurisdiction with a son committing crimes against children and only receiving 1 year. How many other people have gone through the court system getting a lesser charge and it also hidden? Website taken down. Obviously not wanting to be harassed. Very baffling. Shows a sign of guilt on behalf of the sheriff's department. Who's in charge of this website? Are there any more improprieties pertaining to sexual assault with children and adults in this judicial system? Hawkins County, State's Attorney's Office, favor for favor, paying the judges off for other said crimes. Is this a county where they pay judges off for people who are related to certain officials? Was a judge paid in this case against Brandon Lawson? Will there be somebody to bring forth proof of other improprieties with the sheriff and the judicial system in Hawkins County? If you'd like to donate to this great network, $McAngie 129 Cash App. Thank you all so much for following the content. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Mind the children. Feel free to always call if you have any notion that a child is being abused. And if you know of any improprieties with this sheriff's department in Hawkins County or the judicial system, state's attorney's office or detectives or however, please call TBI. And please go to change.org to sign the petition to have Mr. Ronnie Lawson removed as sheriff and properly investigated. I do not know the relation of the children involved in this case. I do not know if she's a family friend or what. Why anybody would want to stop being friends with her. That leads me to think that she has close relations with this man, Mr. Brandon. I don't know anything. But if the daughter's losing friends, possibly, they're not going to say anything. Because once a parent talks, then people are going to know who the child is. But obviously, people up there do know. For the child to say people have turned on her. So now we need to know the relations. The relation of the child to the perpetrator. Family, friend, church, what? We have to pray for this child that she can move on past this. It's hard sometimes to change schools, jurisdictions, because sometimes those sins follow you. Because people talk in small towns, and this place is small. That's why we know that people know who did what, whether it makes it in the news or the newspaper or not. And as I've read you the information of the petition, he went and pled in front of a court before anybody ever knew about him being charged. So nobody even got information that he was charged with the said sex crimes. So that shows a cover-up right there. And somebody found out. So now we have to ask, has Ronnie Lawson properly investigated the disappearance of this child if he's willing to cover up the rest of his son? Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Have a good week.